Hi, it's Lisa Marie here from Edge Agency in Saskatchewan, Canada. And I'm back again with the Edge Agency interview series. And I'm really honored to have with us one of our former international models, Winter. She has taken some time off now because she recently had a baby. But before that, she was a booker for a New York agency. And I'm really glad to have her come in and chime in with us to talk about the industry, being a former international model, what it's like to be a booker, and really what it's like to model in New York City, where every model dreams to go. So Winter, thank you so much for being part of us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Marie. It's really great to see you and be a part of this series.
Well, thank you so much. So where are you, and obviously, how are you?
I am currently with my family in Montana, the state of Montana. We have a little cabin here, and with all the craziness that was happening in New York City with coronavirus, we were lucky enough to be able to escape and just come to this little piece of heaven surrounded by mountains. So it's nice to be here and ride this out and just kind of get some clarity on what's happening in the situation.
Absolutely. Now, like I had mentioned, you recently just taken some time off. Congratulations on your baby girl. And I
Thank
hope
you.
all is well for you and your family. I think that's wonderful. But I know before that, starting off is, you started this journey as an international model. So could you just let the viewers know that are chiming in where it all began for you?
Sure. Well, it began, I can't believe I'm saying this, it began 20 years ago, which is just
Oh, I
crazy
know.
to me that I met you and Greg 20 years ago. But yeah, I was a senior in high school and was discovered in the Regina shopping mall. And you actually, invited me to meet with you, and we set up a photo shoot, and a couple months later I was off to Montreal working. I mean, it was a
Very
whirlwind.
fast.
It
Yeah,
was
very quick.
very fast, and I loved every second of it. So that first summer I started in Montreal, which was nice and local. My parents felt good about sending me off because it was still Canada.
Right.
um, but I got a lot of experience there, and then I had gone to Toronto, and that was just kind of the first little bit of my journey, and I then got to travel internationally from there.
Yes, and I know you've been to a number of places. So, can you just state some of the places that you modeled in your career for sure?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I really did travel the globe. You sent me all over the place,
You
Lisa.
were a trooper, though. Let's say you were a trooper.
I was so thankful for all of it. So I Japan a number of times, Taiwan, Korea. So I did get to travel a lot around Asia, South Africa, Australia, and then all over Europe, including Paris, Milan, London. So I got to hit those major markets, and then I spent a lot of time in New York City and a bit of time in Los Angeles. And so I really did all the major markets. So I was
No,
very, very lucky.
no, that's awesome. And with all the locations that you worked at and all the jobs that you've done, I can't even remember or even propose what would be the highlight of what that you've been involved in, because I know there's been so many. So could you let the viewers know, first of all, what was maybe one of the most fabulous places, or something that really felt important, or a place that you modeled that you really, it touched your heart?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. You know, I really did travel to a lot of amazing places, and often there was a lot of we were there for work, so
Mhm.
we were tourists. But one location that really stuck out to me was actually Madagascar, and that is in the south of Africa. And it was for an Italian magazine, and it was absolutely beautiful there. And why it stands out is because I normally probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to Madagascar. I mean, it's
Right.
not ever been on my list of top places to go or anything, but when I got there, it was just magical. Um, and just seeing that culture and really experiencing it. And we actually had these amazing young boys as our guides, and they were helping me to this middle of a waterfall, you know, to get this perfect shot. And
so you still look good.
Yes, exactly. And after they told me there was alligators in the water, and that kind of freaked me out. But, you know, just looking back on that experience, I'm like, that was probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Just interacting with these local people and experiencing their local food, and not the touristy food, and not, you know, that kind of thing, but it was authentic, and that was pretty amazing.
That's really great.
One of the many amazing trips I've had. It's hard to pick.
Of course. And I know you've done some really amazing jobs. And I know that throughout your career, you know, for a model, there's, you know, amazing jobs to do with like runway and catalog and editorial. But was there ever one job that just stood out in your mind?
You know, I have to say, just because it's such an honor, doing the cover of Spanish Vogue was pretty neat. I mean, I think for a model, getting the cover of Vogue is pretty important, an important milestone in any model's career, and that was pretty neat. We shot it in Paris, and there was some other amazing models that I got to share that cover with, and it was just a very cool experience.
That's great. And it was, I mean, even as an agent, obviously, for us to be able to say that one of our models, you know, had the chance to do that is phenomenal, obviously, in itself. But for you as a model to do it is just terrific. And one of the other shoots that I know for us that, you know, I thought was really amazing, because I didn't know that this person was even a photographer. You ended up doing a job with a Canadian icon, Bryan Adams. Mm-hmm. Now, wow, that was amazing.
Yes, that was really amazing. It was for the Canadian magazine. I don't think they're in publication anymore. I think they're just strictly online now, but it was for Flair magazine, which was one of Canada's prominent fashion magazines at the time, and September 11th had just happened, so I happened to be back home in Saskatchewan, and it literally had just happened, and that was my first job back, and they flew me to Tofino, British Columbia, and I mean, that location alone was absolutely magical. But then when I found out that Bryan Adams was a photographer, it was pretty, you know, nerve-wracking, but he was very down to earth and really lovely, and you know, that trip was amazing too, because we got all these 5-star meals, only the best for him. Normally you don't get these 5-star meals, and we weren't staying, my little crew wasn't staying at the 5-star hotel, he was,
right.
But you know, he was just really very normal, and just really lovely, and he wouldn't ever sing any of his own songs. He would always sing like other people's songs on set.
Oh, really?
Great voice.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, that definitely stands out as one of the most memorable jobs as well.
Absolutely. Now, fast forwarding, and I mean, now, like I was mentioning, you have taken obviously the time off to spend with your daughter and your family. But before that, you have been a booker in New York City, which obviously is one of the fashion capitals of this industry, where every model dreams to work. So what made you sort of channel living in New York and deciding that as a career option once you finished modeling?
Sure. Well, after 11 years, I did retire from the modeling industry. And, you know, it was a hard transition for me personally. It might not be for everybody, but for me, it was just like, okay, I've had all these amazing experiences, and I know I want to go to university and do a degree, but what is it that I want to do? You know, you're exposed to so many different things, and people and opportunities as a model. And so sometimes it can be a little difficult for models to make that transition into that next phase of their life. And I did a lot of thinking, and I did work with a little agency in Vancouver at the time, doing some scouting for them. And through that process, and while I was in school, I just kind of felt like, wow, I really feel at home in an agency.
Yeah.
And I think probably part of it had to do with you, Lisa Marie, knowing how amazing you were to your models and myself,
thank you.
and what an amazing agent you were. And, you know, I had a lot of great mentors in my life at that time, and just a lot of people to look up to. And it just was an easy fit for me. So I graduated university. It was May 2014, and that same month, my husband and I, we packed up our lives and we moved to New York. We actually both had job opportunities there, so it just kind of all clicked. And you know, being married to an American, that made my green card very easy to get. So I could work in the U.S. That's definitely something to mention too. And yeah, so I really did just kind of start out working for a bit of a smaller agency as an intern, and that was, you know, pretty rough, I have to honestly admit, because I definitely worked my way up from the bottom, and I had to get the coffee and the lunches and do the photocopying and sending the models out on castings and all that kind of stuff. But it was great training, I have to say. And I had the opportunity then to work with another agency as a junior agent, and that was a much bigger agency, Ford Models. And that was a great experience too. My boss was amazing and so patient, and she taught me so much while I was there. And then I actually moved on to one more agency as a senior agent, and I loved my team. It was a smaller agency. They were JAG models, and they really just let me, you know, expand as an agent. And it really felt like home being in an agency this entire time. And I've really loved working with the models, especially some of the younger ones as well. I felt like I was the mother hen of the model apartments, keeping my eye out for the little ones. And I think that even transitioned over into my career after modeling too, you know, helping those little ones out if they ever needed help, or if they needed to call somebody in the middle of the night, I would always answer the phone for them. So awesome, like you, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know you actually grew up, when I met you, you were from a smaller community in Saskatchewan before you started to model. So do you think growing up in a smaller community that helped you as a booker? You know, now obviously working in New York, like you said, dealing with the younger models and things like that?
You know, I think maybe more so as a model, actually, if I could say.
For sure.
I think it really kept me very thankful. Knowing that I came from a tiny, small town, and understanding that, wow, I'm in a big city like New York City or Paris. And I realized that I had this amazing opportunity, that I wasn't just in my small town. I love my town that I grew up in, and I am such a proud Saskatchewan person, proud to be a Saskatchewan person. But I think it just made me thankful along the way. And how that translated was that I was always on time for my castings. I always got back to my agents. I mean, I probably could have done better, but you know, I just really was thankful every step of the way. And even if it was a job that maybe wasn't as glamorous, I was still thankful to be there. You know, so I think that definitely, being from a small town helped on that modeling part of it. As an agent, then I think just having
the career.
Having the career made me really thankful, you know what I mean? And knowing on what it's like to be in the model's shoes. But also I realized, wow, my agents did a lot for me that I didn't know about. You know, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and things just happen seamlessly. And I don't think I always appreciated my agents. But I don't think I truly understood how hard they worked for me, how hard you worked for me, Lisa. And until I was on the other end of it,
side.
being my agent. So, yes.
Absolutely. And I know with all the agencies that you've worked with in New York, obviously they're agency that they represent their own models, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also a placement agency in which we've also, placed models with agencies in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So as a booker within those agencies, I know that you work with models that are new faces to also models that are well established.
Mm-hmm.
So any models though that are looking and starting off, like what is some good advice that you would offer to them, especially when it comes to marketing for New York City?
Absolutely. I think that it's really important to present yourself, the way you truly are,
Mm-hmm.
and that means coming, doing some great Polaroid photos or
Yeah.
snapshots. Those are
Mm-hmm.
really important. But making sure that you're not covered in a bunch of makeup. Those agencies
Mm-hmm.
in New York, they need to see what you actually look like.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, really important. My boss at the last agency I worked in, we'd have models come in and he would send them to the bathroom with a makeup wipe in their hand,
Ah,
rub off all their makeup, because he
yeah.
didn't want to see a bunch of makeup on their
Mm-hmm.
faces. He wanted to see what they truly actually looked like.
Yeah.
If you have a pimple on your face, fine, cover that up, but
Mm-hmm.
leave the rest bare. You
Mm.
want to look like yourself and have a good representation of yourself to those agents. Also, your personality really needs to shine through even in a video. I think the fashion industry is not just mannequins. You're not just a mannequin anymore
Right.
with clothes hanging on you.
Yeah.
With the age of social media and, just the different types of jobs and what the clients are looking for too, you need to have that personality. It needs to come through, and you need to, I'm sorry to say, be more than just a model. We
Yeah.
want to see what your hobbies are, what your passions are, what, really drives you and what
For sure.
makes you
A good
excited about life.
introduction video of who you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it depends on the situation. Sometimes you just need your slate. Hi, my name is Winter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5'9.5", this and that. But sometimes those personality videos, the clients request that, and, go for it. Really make yourself known to those clients or those agencies.
Absolutely. So for those that don't live in New York, and they're looking for agencies, I know what I would do as an agent, but for those that are just interested in the industry as general, and they're not coming into New York to see the agencies, how important is it for them to feel that the difference between being seen in person and, like you said, having a really good just casting natural video and showing your personality? Is there opportunities for models to be chosen based on not seeing them in person and by self-taping?
I think it really depends. It depends on the model too.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes I didn't have a lot of interest from an agency until I saw them in person.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this a couple times in Europe where they were just ho-hum about me and my images, but then they saw me in person, my personality came out, and then they wanted to sign me. So it really just depends. How good that casting video is. It might be just blow their socks off and they might want to sign you right away.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you need to do that work and, see the agents in person.
Absolutely. For sure. For sure. Now, the other thing too, because obviously having the experience as a model and now as a booker, for the models that come in and go around to see the agencies, the importance of being interviewed, but also interviewing the agencies, is that just as important? Is it just only important to sort of have yourself shine? Or are there, some good key questions that, every model should be asking or looking for sure? Because it is building of a working relationship.
Absolutely. It really is a two-way street. You need to feel comfortable in your agency and they need to feel comfortable working with you. It's definitely a working relationship. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions and a lot of models feel like, oh my goodness, it's just them. But you have to feel really comfortable with who you're working with, because that will be your booker. And, if they're, they might want to take you on, but you just don't get that perfect feeling like they're part of your extended family. I know that it should be a working relationship, but they're kind of your family away from your family in a, like in a location like Europe or in New York City. So you have to feel good about them, and it's okay to ask questions like, how many models do you represent? What's the ratio of models to bookers? It's okay to ask those questions, like, what type of clients do you work with? Those are really important questions that a model can absolutely ask, as long as it's in a, good, respectful, obviously way.
Yeah.
But it's super important to ask those questions and do your homework about the agency too. Look online, see who they represent already. Do your homework.
That's great. And I know New York has made a lot of recent changes, all for the good, for the industry. So can you explain some of the changes that New York has put in place for the fashion industry?
Absolutely. There's definitely been a lot of changes in New York, even definitely from when I was a model and first starting out to even just a year ago, and when I went on maternity leave. So I guess first we can start off with just the work visa process. So before it was possible to get a visa if you were a younger model, like there was sometimes 15-year-olds in New York working, international, models at that young age. Sometimes they would come with their parents, sometimes they wouldn't, but it has changed a lot. There's a lot of now new child labor laws that have come into place in New York. If an agency does take on a younger model, for every job that they book, they have to get a special work visa, work permit, and underage work permit. And there's a lot of paperwork involved. It's a lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Often you need an educator on set with you for that child, even if they're 17 and a half or, a week before their 18th birthday, all this needs to happen. So a lot of the agencies are now no longer even taking on models that are not 18 years old.
Right.
It's just not worth it for them.
Right.
Especially for an international model, you can't even get a work visa until you're 18.
Right.
So those laws have absolutely changed in New York. And I think that this is actually a really good thing. I think I saw a lot of really young models. Often that's why I had to become mom in the model department. Always happy to have that job. But so that's actually just helping kids stay kids,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
So that's one of the things. It is absolutely getting very difficult to get a work visa in the U.S. now.
Yeah.
Often, so part of the process is you do need 50 tear pages. So those are your magazines or your jobs, examples of your work.
Right. And it's not, sorry, Winter, and it doesn't mean your test shoots.
Not test shoots.
Okay.
No, this has to be published work, and it can be online work. It could be even just e-commerce that you can take a screenshot of online and submit that as well. So that does count. But also you need a variety of client work too. It can't just be like, I did 100 photos for this one client. I'm just going to screenshot all of those and I can submit that. No, and I would say maximum 5 images per client if it is a client, an e-commerce client. But it also should be magazine work, advertising work. So that's why it's really important to really work outside of New York first and get that under your belt before then you can apply for a work visa. You'll also need a lot of client letters.
That's right. Recommendation letters.
Recommendation letters, and a lot of this have to come from American clients. Now, what I have seen is a lot of those corporate clients are no longer allowed to sign those letters anymore, which makes getting those visas even harder. They, I'm not exactly always sure why they don't want to sign the letters, but I think it's because they don't want to vouch for somebody they've never met before.
Right.
And those models can't even come in to meet with the clients and say, hey, can you vouch for me?
Right.
They're not legally allowed to do that. So a lot of clients just don't want to sign those recommendation letters anymore. So it's getting tougher and tougher. And I'm seeing that a lot of the New York agencies, American agencies, are focusing more on scouting within the U.S., than internationally.
Right. Absolutely. For sure. And I found that too, obviously, as an agent, when they're interested in some of our own models, you know, to consider for U.S. representation, those that possibly have, you know, dual citizenship or could have dual citizenship depending on their parents' background as well. There's obviously a definite advantage there, but it is becoming harder for sure. Absolutely. And I, you know, rightfully so. I think in the industry as a whole, I think everyone is, every model out there is trying to basically capture the jobs that they can for themselves in their own country. And I think, you know, all this cross promotion and models working in every other place, I love it as an agent, but I also understand why some, you know, models very much want to keep the jobs within their own country as well too. And that's why it makes it difficult for sure.
Absolutely. And I think we have yet to see kind of how the coronavirus is going to be affecting, you know, a market like New York, where the borders are technically closed right now in the U.S. And so, you know, that'll be interesting to see how that shapes up for sure. So I just wanted to also mention some other exciting changes that are happening in New York and the New York market that I've noticed over the last couple of years for sure is I feel like the New York market's gotten more inclusive in a couple different ways, which I think is really exciting for the industry. First, I think with the different ethnicities that are coming towards the forefront, I've noticed clients are definitely more interested in using, you know, back in my day, I can say like diversity was considered a blonde and a brunette, you know, white girls.
Absolutely. You know? In my time, modeling too. Absolutely. Yeah.
That was the diversity. And if you really wanted to go crazy, you'd have a redhead, you know. That is just such a the Black Lives Matter uprising that's happening. I think it's also going to push the fashion industry to even further diversify their shoots and their jobs.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one really exciting thing, because I feel like, well, especially with the agency that I was working with, you know, it was honestly the African-American girls that were working the most.
Right.
And it was just really interesting to see and amazing to see, especially how the early 2000s were just so different. Another thing I wanted to also mention was how even size diversity has changed a lot. And it, you know, there used to be the straight size models, which were size 2 to 6, and then it would be the plus size models that was size 14 and up, you know. And even the last 2 years, we've had so many more client requests for models size 8 to 12, which is that in between size, which is really wasn't very typical. You know, 4 years ago, that was not a thing at all. And I think it just really shows how, I think, you know, the client, not the clients, but like the consumer is really pushing for that. And people in social media are really pushing for that diversity. In the fashion industry, they want to see, you know, models that represent them. And I think that's super exciting. We actually, the agency that I worked with, we had a size 6'8" model walking on the most coveted runway show on earth, which was the Victoria's Secret fashion show just 2 years ago. I mean, that is incredible. That was unheard of before. And so, you know, it's really exciting to see where fashion is starting to go. They have a long way to go, I must say, but I think it's just really exciting to see those changes in the New York market.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. The consumer is really drilling home what they want to see. People want to be able to not only look at fashion and love it, but look at fashion and have it speak to them in the most believable way to match their size and who they are, from their ethnic background to their shape and size, so that when they're looking at something, they can completely relate. And that you're absolutely right, that it is a huge change within the industry, and well-deserved, absolutely, and a long time coming. Yes, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. One of the other last questions I did want to ask you, Winter, is all your time being a model, what was some of the best advice that you received while working in the industry overseas?
I think I think I got this advice maybe not from other agents or people in that fashion industry, but
Mhm.
I think I got it more closer to home from my
Good.
family
Yeah.
and from you and Greg. Just be myself. I'd often have agents, and Mira specifically, that would always tell me I'm too nice. And
You're too Canadian. Stop being so nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I am who I am. I've always
Yeah.
been this way. And,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to change myself for, anybody. I needed
Yeah.
to be myself. And
Mhm.
I had a very long career as a model, 11 years of being me. So obviously the industry didn't hate me that much, they hate my niceness.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And even the agent industry, the agent, environment is very cutthroat, and you know, but I often found that the clients liked to work with me.
Yes.
They wanted to work with me because I was nice and who I was,
Yeah.
and the models wanted to work with me too.
Yeah.
So I think that was just the best advice I could ever have gotten, was just be yourself.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be a Canadian girl from Saskatchewan.
And
So,
there's nothing wrong with that.
no,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
am who I am.
absolutely. For sure. For sure.
One thing though, it's a little bit funny. It's this sweetest agent. She really did mentor me a lot when I was at Ford Model. She said, "Wonder, you have to stop saying sorry all the time." And I'm like, "You're
I
right, I
hear that.
do." Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is a common thing that we are told as Canadians. We always apologize first, even though
Yes.
we really haven't done anything wrong. Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
can take me out of Canada, but you can't take the Canada out of me.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, Winter, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I truly appreciate it. And I know all the models watching really appreciate the expertise that you've given. Obviously, your dynamic and beautiful personality that you've always had. Thank you so much for giving us the insight to New York, as well as an international model. And we wish you all the best with your little one and your time away from the industry. Enjoy it, and look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was such a pleasure. You're very sweet for your kind words. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you and all those models out there. Hopefully I've helped out a little bit.
I know you have. Thank you so much, Winter. Bye.
Bye.